October 24th, the first day of the NBA season. When that day comes around, we'll be introduced to many new teams, narratives, and my boredom from this offseason will be officially gone as all 30 teams come back to go after the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Well, more like realistically 10 out of the 30, but you get what I mean. But one thing I always avoided doing on my channel is any type of hot takes, mainly because some of them may be a little unorthodox and just plain out weird because, again, you're watching this channel. You have no excuse to saying that it's weird. But anyways, to celebrate the 2024 NBA season being close to arriving, I think it's time that I should share with my viewers my hot takes for every single team for the 2024 season. And yes, I have something to say about every team. Some of them are more interesting than others, but you'll see exactly what I mean once we get into the video. But before we start, if you want to see more videos like these, be sure to like the video. And now we are officially on the road to 100K, so be sure to subscribe to be a part of that and to catch more videos. But as usual, this will be a long one, but you already know who it is. Roll it!
3, 2, 1.
Weights in the weight room, so he stitched up in the left. He's doing all this.
So we're starting off with the only team outside of North America, huh? Okay, anyways, let's do it. The Toronto Raptors have always been an interesting team for the last few seasons, mainly because of how they refuse to either tank or go towards a championship, even to the point to where they got their hands on the Rookie of the Year in 2021, Scottie Barnes, who is going to be the center of this hot take, and that is Scottie Barnes will be a finalist for the Most Improved Player Award. Ever since he came into the league, I knew he had potential to do whatever he wanted in the league with time. The only problem was he was stunted by the fact he had too many people over him in the pecking order: Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, and of course, Pascal Siakam. But with Fred VanVleet gone and the incoming looming trades of both Pascal and OG, or at least hopefully, that leaves Scottie with the opportunity to take over and be able to capitalize on his many basketball skills. Because if you simply look at his stats, he has been the exact same player on the exact same role for years number 1 and 2. But if Pascal and OG stay a Raptor, Scottie has already told the media since this summer that he will be gunning to be the point guard to start the season. And I'm here for it. And if he's able to become a matchup nightmare, work on his playmaking, and work in whatever new system is coming to the Raptors, I can see that third-year explosion happening to where Scottie could be an MIP finalist. Notice how I didn't say winner. I'm not going to be that crazy. I really hated how Milwaukee went out last year. I had them as my finals representatives for the Eastern Conference, and they helped my confidence by being the first seed and the best rated team in the NBA record-wise. But as soon as I saw the Heat facing them, I just knew it would be a hard series. But losing to them, absolutely no way. Absolutely unexpected. But speaking of the playoffs, I have the Bucks as my 2 early finals representatives for the East again. Why? Because Mike Budenholzer has been fired. Now, is Adrian Griffin the answer for them? Who knows? But what I do know is, for as amazing of a regular season coach Budenholzer was for the 2015 Hawks and the Bucks in his tenure there, him in the playoffs will forever be confusing to me. We all saw it firsthand with the Heat, so I think even if Adrian Griffin isn't a clear upgrade, as we don't know what type of system he will run, if he can just be a better playoff coach and have a better scheme, I think the Bucks can go back to the finals once again, especially as the East continues to stay as top heavy as it is. Then of course, when you're adding Giannis's revenge season narrative and Damian Lillard being traded to this team on the day I'm writing this video, the Bucks, no, Giannis has zero excuses not to go for championship number 2. So again, the Bucks are finals bound. You heard it here first. In the words of Brittany Renner, if you want to come up on a check, fuck an athlete. They are really dumb, and that remains true in the off-the-court saga of Zion Williamson, who would rather mess with a psychotic pornatrix than to be in the gym getting back in basketball shape. But after being exposed of said dirty secret, he is back in the gym and looking as good as he ever have. And yes, I know it's the same cycle every offseason, but my hot take for the Pelicans is that they will be a top 3 seed in the standings the entire season with Zion Williamson, and yes, and Zion Williamson will play over 70 games this year, clocking in as the most games he has ever played in a season in his career. While it shouldn't be 5 years in the making, it is finally happening, and due to this, his game will bring the Pelicans back to where they should be, in playoff/finals contention. At one point, we've seen this team at the top of the rankings last year in the beginning of the season, but as soon as Zion went out of the lineup, it fell completely apart. But with a healthy Zion and the growth of a team due to him being absent, this will be the first year that the Pelicans can be treated as real threats in the Western Conference. Unfortunately, it took catching Zion sticking his dick in places it shouldn't be, but as the saying goes, better now than never. But seriously, if any NBA players are watching this, which I doubt, can you please stop fucking these strippers and shit, bro? I'm getting tired of seeing this. I have always enjoyed seeing the development of the Boston Celtics when they brought together the duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It has been a bumpy road, and now they're perennial playoff and even finals threats every year for the last half decade. But my hot take for this season will be away from that. No, my hot take will be that Jason Tatum will be the 2024 NBA MVP. I know some of you are probably making a disgusted face or about to leave a dislike or angry comment or something, but just listen to me just for a little bit. You're already watching the video. The MVP last year, even if it was already kind of rigged and unfortunately politicized due to Patrick Perkins, yes, I called him that, the race all season by the media was between Jokic and Embiid, with no one else being able to touch the stratosphere they're in, with Giannis barely getting any first place votes himself. But in fourth place, do you know who was in the ballots that year in fourth place? Jason Tatum, and it was for a good reason, breaking the Celtics all-time points per game scoring average record in a season, career highs in scoring, and of course being the second seed in the East. But I at least see this season he will elevate himself even further. With Marcus Smart gone, it leaves a playmaking vacancy for anyone to take, and while I doubt Derek White will be taking that role for him, I think Jason Tatum is about to take that spot and further boost his numbers into a true MVP caliber year. Let's just say in the realm of anywhere from 25 to 30 points per game again, with 8 assists and 8 rebounds a game. And from there, with the East not getting any particularly stronger, some could say weaker in some aspects, if the Celtics can claim again the best record in the East or NBA itself, I can see a real case for Jason Tatum to win the league's MVP in close fashion, because Jokic is about to average triple-double. That is not my hot take for the Nuggets, by the way, because we already know Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, and others will be on his tail. But again, this is for sure in the realm of possibilities, with a few factors going his way. I'm not gonna lie to you, the more and more I watched the Knicks last year, the more and more I started to like their play style and began to think, with a few extra pieces, this team could be a dark horse for the finals. And while I don't think they did anything major enough to get that label yet, I do think with them keeping their team together and adding in pieces in a 3-and-D player in Dante DiVincenzo, and the further development of Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, and hopefully, and I mean this seriously, hopefully RJ Barrett, the Knicks will be a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference and a 50-win team for the first time since the Carmelo Anthony saga. This team is truly made to be coached by the minute maniac himself, Tom Thibodeau, and is already tested to be able to survive in his defense-heavy play style and offensive-heavy style that is mainly entrusted by 1 or 2 players. With another year of Julius Randle learning his place by Jalen Brunson, and now another year of Jalen Brunson being that guy of a team, I think this team has the ability to keep leveling up with each other and keep inching their way closer to becoming a legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference. And to the people that thought this was going to be a prediction of RJ Barrett being good consistently, I gave up on that once Jalen Brunson got signed to the team. Believe me, that ship has long since sailed. The Detroit Pistons is a mess through and through, and have officially become the place where lottery picks go to die or get thrown to well, also die. For the amount of talent they've been able to draft or even be able to trade for, I just can't understand how none of them have been able to work out so far. But that changes this year, because their leader returns in Cade Cunningham, and reportedly even better than ever, especially after he led the select team beating the main team USA squad that went to the FIBA World Cup. So you know what? I believe Cade Cunningham will lead this team of misfits and become a first-time All-Star. One of the main things that Cade in Detroit has had to deal with during his time there is the fact that this team lacked any type of offensive identity, and Cade struggled due to that lack of identity, making it harder for him to score or even able to facilitate as a passer. But I think in his 3rd year, he will finally be able to flourish as an offensive product and be able to make his first ever All-Star game, with a perfect lob threat in budding big man in Jalen Duren, and of course the consistent Bojan Bogdanovic and slashers in Jaden Ivey and rookie Ashur Thompson Thompson, I think we finally have a core that can help Detroit slowly but surely make their way back into the NBA world. But of course, you still have to add in the projects in James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, and the Frenchman himself, Killian Hayes. But a projected stat line of, I'd say, 22 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds a game, which will definitely be all-star level numbers. But of course, he will have to win games too, but we'll just see how that goes. The Memphis Grizzlies have become the most polarizing team in the NBA, and for so many reasons. Ja Morant will be out for 25 games due to suspension. We are awaiting the health status of Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, and now they added more help in the backcourt with Marcus Smart, the DPOY from 2 years ago, and Derrick Rose, who maybe be looking for a 6-man role after all the times he have just been sitting in the New York Lights. But with all the uncertainties of this team, I believe my one guarantee for this year will be that Jaren Jackson will now be a part of the 20-point per game club. As a big-time NBA watcher, because duh, I own this channel, I have noticed that Jaren Jackson is taking a lot more offensive responsibility last year, more than ever, despite the fact of already having Ja Morant and Desmond Bane on the team. Gaining more muscle and weight has really helped him big time when it comes to scoring, and he is getting a lot more aggressive when it comes to actually finishing shots in the paint in general. Now, I know his performances in the FIBA World Cup showed a lot of his weaknesses, but remember, the NBA and EuroLeague are completely different types of basketball. But anyways, with Ja Morant missing a good chunk of the season, Desmond Bane now moves into the top scoring role. And second to him is Jaren Jackson Jr., and I believe he will move into this role beautifully, as it will help him come playoff time against the stacked Western Conference. Will he be an all-star again? Maybe, but I can at least guarantee that he'll have a bigger scoring jump that will be necessary for him to become a bigger threat long-term in his career. The Timberwolves have forever stayed as one of the most confusing teams in the NBA, and it is a team that I have been watching very closely, especially after that atrocious Rudy Gobert trade. But what I see from this team is a lot of unsustainability from a lot of angles. We are still waiting to see if currently the talents at power forward, the experiment itself, is going to work. Rudy Gobert stays unsatisfied about his role on offense, and you could argue this team is slightly weaker than they were last year. But my take, you ask, I think Chris Finch will be fired before the start of the 2025 NBA season. Despite the little bits of success making the playoffs for 2 straight years, you can notice the cracks in the foundation that slowly is tearing the team down. Anthony Edwards will probably have another all-star bid, but everybody else on the team is a big-time question mark. Jaden McDaniels is looking for more offensive reps. Rudy is probably going to get less touches than even last year. Cat will probably have to prove himself being at the 4 that actually brings success to the team rather than be a hindrance, and from there, will anyone even step up from the bench? And as we all know, at the end of the day, if things don't work out as they should, or at least people think they should, especially if they don't make the playoffs, the first person out is the coach. But I already thought Chris Finch wasn't the best coach, nor is he doing anything extraordinary that shows me he'll be there as a long-term option. It was shown against the Grizzlies 2 years ago, and it was shown against the Nuggets again, even though it was a 1 versus 8 matchup. This season will be a big one for him and the Timberwolves in general, but I do predict a downgrade at the end of the day, record-wise. So as we all know, a coaching change might be imminent if it does happen. One of the moves, if not the move of the summer, was of course the Bradley Beal trade, being moved from his longtime team in Washington to the Phoenix Suns to form a big 3 with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. In the era of big 3s, super teams, and stars just teaming up with each other, this makes another time KD has ended up on a top-heavy team looking for another championship. And you know what? I actually think this one has a big chance of making something happen. You know, that being said, I think the Phoenix Suns will be the top seed in the Western Conference, and I have to preface this, barring injury. But anyways, as I mentioned in my video about the winners and losers of the offseason, the Suns were able to make a lot of the lack of money they had, getting shooters, athleticism, and unproven talent that could potentially do something with a opportunity. But of course, the main focus, even with these free agents and the trade made, is the big 3. And with that big 3, I bet it will be damn near impossible to game plan against them on a night-to-night basis, because no matter what, you'll have to deal with one of the top small forwards in the NBA, arguably the best shooting guard in the league, and of course a former 30-point per game scorer in the NBA. Now, will there be some growing pains? I'd honestly say that they will only be for Bradley Beal, but he has been an off-ball guard before when he was a young guy playing alongside John Wall in Washington. I believe the Suns have the perfect mixture to be dominant in the regular season with their top-end talent and role players galore. Now, do I want them to win? Of course not, but as you can see, I have them taking over in the regular season, most definitely. The best defensive team in the NBA last year, the Cleveland Cavaliers. From a young team with a bright future, immediately thrusted to a playoff team due to their trade for Donovan Mitchell. We didn't see much progress from the young guys due to this move, but my prediction for the Cavaliers is that we see Evan Mobley become the winner of the DPOY award. Ever since he came to the NBA, he was already praised as a unicorn, especially defensively. Even in his rookie season, he impressed, average 1.7 blocks a game. That placed him 6th in blocks per game, again, as a rookie. Of course, the next season, he was more of a figuring out period for him, both offensively and defensively. He needed to take strides in his offensive game, especially as we saw him get absolutely boxed by the Knicks in his first ever playoff series, but he continues to get stronger and learn more. I could see that this year be the year that he leads the Cavaliers defense and becomes the winner of the Defensive Player of the Year award. There'll be a lot of competition, obviously, especially in the winner of last year, Jaren Jackson Jr., who averaged 3 blocks a game, Giannis, who is always a threat to win it, and a few select others. But as Evan Mobley garners more basketball IQ playing in the league, and again with his body maturing, I think this year is the year he takes that defensive leap. The Miami Heat are the cockroaches of the NBA. Strong, resilient, and very much annoying when you keep seeing them survive everything you throw at them. Last year, when I watched them on League Pass, I was tortured by seeing them miss three-pointer after three-pointer after three-pointer, and seeing them lose close game after close game after close game. And that turned into them being the 8th seed last year. Well, guess what? After the departure of their G League champions and Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, I say they ended up worse. 9th or 10th seed level worse. Now let me say, I never saw the Heat as a real threat since their run in the bubble. I don't know what it is, but their competition of teammates just never strikes me as a real title contending team. But with Jimmy Butler turning into Michael Jordan's son and Caleb Martin going Super Saiyan, they ended up back in the finals to my dismay. But you take away their G League pieces, they now end back in that sunken place where they struggle to even win regular season games due to their lack of shooting and grit on the team departing, and most likely no jumps being made from the games of Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. But again, that's just my opinion at the end of the day. They could somehow bring some random unknown G Leaguer up and he turns into an MVP with my luck. And with Damian Lillard being traded to the Bucks, I just know that panic button is being pressed in that locker room for sure. The town of purple and gold, the Los Angeles Lakers. I talked about their major improvements in the offseason in my offseason winners and losers video that you should check out after this one, wink wink. But one of the main components that people were freaking out about, or I guess had some people rolling their eyes really, is the fact that they signed Christian Wood on a damn near league minimum. And he will be my subject of this hot take. I believe that Christian Wood will be the winner of the 6th Man of the Year award. I've been watching the NBA for a long time as a fan, and one thing I've come and noticed as a Clippers fan is that some players are just not made to be starters, but that also means they can make a long career as a 6th man. We know Christian Wood can score the best of them when it comes to being a big man and of course having the offensive versatility that he has at the center position, but he has yet to prove that he can be trusted not to give up more points than he can score. But we've seen plenty of players be able to turn that into something. Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford, and Montrezl Harrell. Well, until he made that mistake of becoming a Laker, but not Christian. Because if he can buy into the soon-to-be 6-man role behind AD, I do think that he can do his best to become the winner of the 6th Man of the Year award with his offensive versatility and not having to worry about playing defense so much, especially on a team that is full of it. But if he stays defiant for some reason and wants more, then he'll just further hinder his career when he can make use of this chance, especially on the Lakers, to make something more of it in an unorthodox way. I think it is safe to say the Wizards will be a bottom 3 team in the league, if not the worst team in the NBA. But that isn't the hot take for today. No, that is just an unfortunate truth. Anyways, there is a certain prospect on that team that has always been of interest to me and that I hate that the Wizards have never made use of, and that person is Deni Avdija. I love the idea of a tall, lanky, do-it-all forward for the Wizards at the time, but this was during the period where the Wizards refused to tank or trade away Bradley Beal, wasting away his youth. But now with Rui, Beal and Kristaps gone, I think this is the time we finally get to meet the Denny that can do something, and that's why my hot take for the Wizards is that Denny will be a finalist for the NBA's Most Improved Player award. Denny has been waiting for his opportunity to do something literally on that team for as long as he's been there, but of course, he's been put on the back burner for other players. But guess what? He is now all they have left with a few other players. All that remains in front of him is Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. I think he will be the perfect point forward moving forward with this team, being able to be a second floor general on this team with Tyus Jones, who will most likely play the point guard spot, and now with more shot opportunities being opened up, he can easily put Denny in the third command of the team to finally take advantage of an opportunity that he has never had. The 7 shots per game last year that he got should easily go up to anywhere from 13 to 16 a game, and of course adding on more assists since he will hopefully have more playmaking duties. But it all depends on him and if he shows us that he can be trusted with full-time responsibility as an offensive player. But if he does, don't be surprised to see him as a finalist for the Most Improved Player award. I don't even need any type of fancy intro for this one, as it literally is the thumbnail for this video, but everyone has their take for Victor Wembanyama, and honestly, I do too. Watching the few Summer League games I've seen and the many games he's played in France last season, I think a lot of people will agree with me when I say I believe that off the bat, Victor will be a DPOY finalist in year number 1. A 7'3" height and a 8-foot wingspan is something that cannot be taught. And him already coming in from France blocking nearly 3 blocks a game and showing that he can do that without drawing fouls shows a real talent to swat shots and waver offenses from wanting to drive into the paint. Even averaging 4 blocks a game in 2 games in the Summer League is certainly a bright spot, showing that it wasn't a fluke. But as he comes into the NBA, he'll be faced with many different types of challenges when it comes to offensive schemes and strategies. But as I spoke about earlier, we've seen something like that with Evan Mobley, who was able to come in and immediately almost finish top 5 in blocks in his rookie season. So to think that Victor couldn't be able to do that and then some is certainly absurd. I believe with the help of Greg Popovich and all the resources he has around him, he will have a very similar impact as Tim Duncan did in his rookie year, minus the playoff appearances, hopefully, and the All-Star appearance, hopefully, in his rookie year though. I'm not going to go that far, but again, as long as the Spurs don't try to baby him and give him minutes restrictions, being a DPOY finalist is very possible to see this upcoming season. I just love how I go from one rookie take to another. Anyways, the OKC Thunder have an absolutely bright future, and after finessing the NBA over and over again and garnering as many draft picks as possible, we will finally be able to see one of their own natural draft picks play in Chet Holmgren. And my hot take for the Thunder is that the second-year rookie Chet Holmgren will be the rookie of the year this season. And yes, that is even with Victor and Scoot in the same class. We've seen a common trend when it comes to injured rookies coming into their rookie year, and I believe that Chet will continue that trend. People really underrate the experience of treating your rookie season as a redshirt freshman year in college, where you get to work out all year, learn for the team and the veterans, and provide way better than you would as a true freshman. And even though this isn't college, the same thing becomes true, as Chet reportedly gained more than 15 pounds of muscle and of course was stuck in the gym and had a great showing in the Summer League. And with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looking for another true secondary scorer, this is Chet time to have a Ben Simmons or Blake Griffin type of rookie season, especially on a team that desperately needs a center. There are just too many factors that goes to Chet Holmgren winning the Rookie of the Year that I can't avoid, and I believe wholeheartedly that he can steal this away from the French phenom himself, Victor Wembanyama. Oh boy, I know I get a lot of flack for being a Clippers fan, but nothing is worse than actually seeing this PG and Kawhi experiment go down for the last 5 years of my life. But if you want to hear a hot take for the Clippers, well, in a non-biased fashion, I think this year the Clippers will actually stay healthy and make it back to the conference finals. Some of you may see a pattern of just expecting the same thing to happen, and believe me, I have that same attitude about my favorite team. But after watching almost every single game they play, last year had the potential to be good once again. But freak accidents in the form of Paul George run-in with the human pit bull Lou Dort and Kawhi Leonard's bump in with DeAndre Ayton that looked similar to Joe Ingles, well, we already know what these things are going to be. Freak accidents. But going into next season fully healthy and bringing back most of their core from the year before, I do believe this is the year they can actually make a solid run. Now, will it be a finals run? I'd only hope so, but I will not go that far, as I know how the average Clippers season ends. But I can at least be optimistic that with the contracts of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard ending this year with their player options this offseason, this would be the year they truly give it their all and decide once and for all whether to leave this era in disappointment or to die trying once again with new deals. The Dallas Mavericks took a gamble with the Kyrie Irving trade last year and saw immediately the troubles it would bring, trading away a lot of their vital depth in Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie to not make the playoffs last year. And I will say, as the comments mentioned in my winners and losers video in the offseason, the Mavs did a pretty decent job in the offseason to put a band-aid over the leaking vitality that is the Mavericks playoff chances in the wild west. Getting Seth Curry and Grant Williams, drafting Derek Lively, trading for Rashawn Holmes if he even plays, and banking on development of their young players. But unfortunately, when I look at this team, I still see a team that lacks defense and has a coach that is known for being a stickler in the worst ways possible, playing young guys. And his trust for young players still remains at an all-time low, even with their lottery pick Derek Lively being a very, very necessary piece for their future help with his defensive vitals. So my take, the Mavericks once again don't make the playoffs. As usual, Luka can only do so much offensively, and even with Kyrie Irving added to that, he's still got a lot of question marks when it comes to everybody else. As of right now, as it stands, it's Luka, Kyrie, and a bunch of shooters and a few wild cards. And as the younger teams get better and better in the Western Conference stabilize, I see the Mavericks as the odd man out. But again, at the end of the day, this is all just my opinion. I could be absolutely wrong. I still argue that the Nikola Vucevic trade brought the continuous stagnation of the Chicago Bulls as they continue to not either tank or bank on a young player on the roster to improve, which is what you thought they'd eventually do when they drafted Patrick Williams, who was a big question mark already and a surprise with the 4th pick. But with 2 straight seasons with an early exit to the Bucks and another downgrade, now you make the playoffs that next year, I think this is going to be the state of the Chicago Bulls. As I said in my last video, this offseason would have been a great way to bail yourself out with how open the market was due to a weak free agency class. But the Bulls doubled down and signed back Vucevic and said, let's do it again. So with that being said, I think they repeat the same fate as last year, not making the playoffs once again. You may say they added to their defensive identity, getting Javon Carter and Torrey Craig, but at the end of the day, are you really going to rely on a big 3 of DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic to lead you to the promised land? The answer should be no. Last year, they were literally bottom 10 in team scoring due to over-relying on them, and I think that will only repeat with no leveling up on the side of the ball. But hey, defense wins championships, but offense keeps you in the game. A beneficiary of one of the most even trades of NBA history, Tyrese Halliburton and the Indiana Pacers come into the NBA season with a lot of eyes, with them adding new weapons in the form of Obi Toppin, who can finally start on a team, especially with one of the best playmakers in the NBA that can give them a lot of easy points, signing Bruce Brown and banking on the development of their young players galore. They even looking at trading away Buddy Hield, which would be great for giving players minutes that need them, like a Benedict Mathurin. But my take for them is that they earn a top 6 seed and make it to the playoffs for the first time in 3 seasons. Tyrese has already shown himself to be a leader in the NBA on the court and has the ability to make his teammates better, and before his injury, the Pacers were actually in that same position. But after another season of development and working with his teammates, I think this is the year we can finally see something of this young core. Obi Toppin being a quality starter in the league, Benedict being a full-time shooting guard on the team, and also Bruce Brown continuing to improve and be a real good role player in the NBA. And lastly, Miles Turner claiming that he'll be an all-star this year, so I'm glad to see how he will be continued to develop his offensive game. I'm excited to see what this team can come up with, but again, I also see them avoiding the play-in and being a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. Last year's champions and looking to repeat that once again, the Denver Nuggets. While a lot of people are making their takes about the Nuggets potentially repeating as champions or similar cases, I want to focus on a certain player for this team, and that person is Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray has continuously been disrespected and not considered one of the better point guards in the NBA, and honestly, I couldn't tell you why. I guess it's because he plays in Denver and doesn't do anything ridiculous, but he's just a really reliable scoring point guard who comes through in big moments, as we saw in the playoffs last year. But for the Denver Nuggets, I think this year Jamal Murray will be finally given his flowers and be inducted as a first-time All-Star. While obviously the talent level in the Western Conference will remain the same in the aspects of guards, I believe Jamal Murray will use his experience as a finals champion to level up once more in the realm of NBA players and do more for his team, especially as they lost Bruce Brown and have a very huge question mark when it comes to guards on that team in general, which will leave Jamal Murray with much more responsibilities unless a young player decides to step up. Last year, he already broke his own career marks as a playmaker, so there's plenty more room for improvement on the aspects of his stats if that is what it takes for him to get more votes from the NBA crowd. And if that doesn't work, then he'll for sure be a coach's addition as the Nuggets look to repeat the same success next season. Listen, this offseason for the Warriors have been an absolute circus fest for some, as they added a 38-year-old CP3 to replace Jordan Poole. And now this team has way too many question marks to even count from their team composition standpoint, and if CP3 will even be fine as a six-man role for his team. Well, you know what? I'm here to predict this storyline before anyone else. Chris Paul will win the Sixth-Man of the Year award off the bench for the Golden State Warriors. I've heard this take about Stephen Curry being the two guard or Clay or Wiggins being moved to the bench and just how good Steph would be if his main role was just running all over the place like he does in his off-ball sets. But I love the idea much more of Steph and CP3 both running an offense rather than sharing the court together and making the most of the situation together. Stephen Curry has shown time and time again he can lead an offense, especially with help in places all over in that avenue. But if you don't know, the offense falls apart once Stephen Curry gets off the court, and it's been like that for the last few years. So with CP3, you can relieve Steph with a trusted and capable point guard who can run the offense himself, something that Jordan Poole couldn't do when Stephen Curry sat and he came in. And of course, this entirely relies on CP3 buying in on said system, but it takes way too much sense not to do it. I can easily see CP3 numbers being around 12-15 points a game with 7 assists off the bench, and he easily wins Sixth-Man of the Year in an offense that thrives off of cuts, screens, and three-point shooting off of said cuts and screens. But if he's a starter in some janky ass lineup, I'll be waiting to see if it fails or succeeds. I'd much rather see him off the bench though, considering his frail ass body and how availability is one of his worst factors when it comes to being in the playoffs. Because if he's playing 30 to 35 minutes a game, that will definitely not end out well once playoff time comes around. I think this is finally the year the Orlando Magic has some real hope and get out of that basement area they have been since Dwight Howard left them in the early 2010s. It took a lot of draft picks and really bad picks, but finally with their prize jewel in Paolo Banchero, he can lead this team to their eventual victory one of these days. Speaking of him, this hot take for the Magic will be that Paolo Banchero will be an all-star this season. If there's one thing that plays the Magic, in my opinion, is that the pecking order may not be very set in stone with young talent galore on that team. But one thing everybody knows is that the best player indisputably on that team is Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. And while his rookie season stats-wise was amazingly statistically on the surface, people who really watch the Magic know there's still a lot that he can work on with this lack of a consistent jumper and working on being a consistent hub for his team, being able to do it all offensively if he wants to be a superstar in this league. But I believe that he will make that jump this year as the Magic continues to get more established. I'd say he'd be in the realm of averaging 24 points, 6 assists, and 8 rebounds a game, but as long as the Magic can back up that production with some wins alongside that, don't be surprised if Paolo Banchero's name is on an all-star ballot fighting with other stars of today. While the Brooklyn Nets are at an interesting place right now after the failed Kyrie Irving and KD experiment that ended in spectacular fashion, you could agree that the spoils of war somewhat made up for those years of failure and controversy. But there is one pillar of that controversy that remains, and his name is Benjamin David Simmons. After being traded to the Nets in 2 years where he only played 42 games and had apparently had every nagging injury known to man and has not looked anything like himself at all, I may be falling victim to the usual press releases that athletes do to make themselves look better than they really do in the offseason, but damn it, I want to believe. My hot take is that we are coming up on a Ben Simmons redemption all-star season. He claims that he's getting his body in the best shape that he's ever been and coming back stronger than ever, and most importantly, he says that he will be the starting point guard of the Brooklyn Nets this season, and I am sure management is loving hearing all of this after seeing how uninterested he looked playing in limited time last year. He has the opportunity to lead a very interesting team with an unbelievable Mikal Bridges, a budding Nick Claxton, and a myriad of role players. And if there's one thing that Ben Simmons strives in is making his teammates better and giving them easy looks off of his gravity and being a mismatch nightmare, he has always been since coming into the league. Now, will he shoot jumpers and three-pointers? I highly doubt that, but baby steps, people. I'm expecting his usual all-star numbers of 17 points, 8 to 9 rebounds, and 8 to 9 assists a game, and also getting back into that DPOY form, which will easily put him back in people's good graces after 2 years of, well, absolutely nothing, really. I don't know what it is about the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, but they seem to keep attracting a lot of interesting characters to their team, and it keeps making them look worse than they actually are. But when it comes to this upcoming season, seeing how all of this might have a lot of weird variables everywhere, I think my hot take for the Charlotte Hornets is that they will be the worst team in the NBA records-wise, with a mix of lack of leadership, lack of identity, and most importantly, lack of fucking supervision of the young players. I think this team will turn out worse than they did last year. They have a lot more young talent coming in, like the second pick in Brandon Miller, who is looking to be a Paul George type of player according to him. And of course, they're getting back Mr. 27 days, nigga, 27 nights, Miles Bridges, after he gets past his short suspension this upcoming season. But want to know something funny? Only 3 players on their current roster have played more than 4 seasons in the NBA, and that's Frank Ntilikina, Gordon Hayward, and Terry Rozier. Everybody else is still in their rookie contracts or just got an extension. Shout out to PJ Washington. You'll be paying more money to Brittany Renner. The average age of this team last year was 24 years and 7 months. And I'm sure it's just going to get younger after this offseason. Sure, you'll see an improvement for the likes of LaMelo Ball and others like Mark Williams. When it comes to the entirety of this team, it has way too much going against them rather than for them. Don't be surprised if what I said comes into fruition, because if this trend of what is happening here continues, then it may turn out worse than I could have ever predicted. The Portland Trail Blazers are now in a new era as Damian Lillard gets traded to the Milwaukee Bucks today, and now they are a young team once again restarting and trying again. But there aren't a lot of bright spots on this Portland Trail Blazers roster, especially in the way that second-year coach Chauncey Billups was running it last year. But one person who was a light in all of that darkness was Shaedon Sharpe, showing that he knows how to use his athleticism in an effective way as a rookie, and shows that his jump shot translated to the next level in very limited action. So my prediction is that as Damian Lillard leaves, Shaedon Sharpe will see a surge in his production and take a huge sophomore leap, becoming a full-time starter. If there's one thing I love in athletic players, is seeing their game become a lot more versatile and using said athleticism to their advantage in other avenues that isn't scoring. In a recent example, Jaylen Brown, who came into the NBA as a raw athletic product with a lot of upside, and now he's one of the best shooting guards in the NBA, even though he can't use his left hand. But never mind that. I saw that same game in Shaedon and expect him to score around the rim of 17 points a game from his 9 last year and do even more. Say post All-Star break as Chauncey Billups notices what he has in a second-year Shaedon Sharpe. I really think that Scoot and Shaedon have a huge potential as a duo in the future, and it starts because Damian Lillard gets traded finally to the Bucks, so now a new era can begin. Due to the new laws and regulations of the NBPA has just put in place, the Houston Rockets have been dealt a pretty interesting hand. Either overpay players to come to your team or face a nice little fine for not using up a certain percentage of your salary cap. And they chose overpaying for the services of Fred VanVleet and one of the most made fun of players last season, Dillon Brooks. According to a lot of people, these two players are supposed to bring some type of new changes to a team missing a veteran presence, and it was felt when KPJ decided to assault his girlfriend recently. So this truly shows how much work is needed to bring to this team to find any sort of success. Even funnier, Dillon Brooks has a $1 million incentive bonus if the Rockets make the playoffs. However, if you ask me, this move doesn't move the needle one bit. And my take is that the Rockets will stay right where they are in the basement of the NBA. This team is going to need a lot more to happen to them to start magically winning games again. Jalen Green needs to find better and more efficient ways to score. Alperen Sengun needs to be a bigger part of the offense. And I don't buy that Fred VanVleet is going to be an efficient scorer and Dillon Brooks won't run the Rockets into the ground offensively like he did the Memphis Grizzlies, especially considering one of the reasons he left the team in the first place is because they wouldn't give him a bigger offensive role there. But I don't know what he expects in Houston to be in the first place. They have a nice future if utilized correctly, but a false all-star and an insane asylum patient isn't going to be magically bringing you wins. Ime Udoka, you got a lot of work to do, and you should have never fucked that Celtics employee. You probably would have won a chip last year if you didn't. The Sacramento Kings, America's team last year, and the story of the NBA who was able to persevere past the 16-year playoff drought they've had and take the defending champions of last year to 7 games in the first round. Well, this year, I believe they will do even better and win 50 games this season. They have the formula that is well tested and proven to win them games through their #1 ranked offense last year, outscoring every team they met and efficiently at a damn near 50% clip as a unit. With their additions in the form of EuroLeague MVP Sasha Vezenkov, the left-handed sharpshooter, and JaVale McGee to help out in the big man efforts, something they struggled with when Domantas Sabonis went off the court, the Kings also get another year to try and take America's hearts again and light the beam. But even then, we can still talk about the fact that the Aaron Fox continues to become a better leader in his point guard role. Kings fans are expecting a leap in production from Keegan Murray and not just being limited to a 3-point shooter and doing much more like he did in college. And of course, Malik Monk coming for a 6th Man of the Year nomination as he thrived in his bench role with his former college teammate. Once again, big props to Mike Brown, who saw a team with a huge strength and was able to turn that into a 3rd-seeded team. And I am sure he will make this team more ironcladded in their strategy and repeat once again as the best offensive team in the NBA and once again a 50-win team. I'm not gonna lie to you, I do not like the Hawks. No troll, I really don't like the Hawks. I've been watching Trae Young since college, and something in my brain just told me that he would never be able to lead a championship team. And even in year 5, I never seen the vision. Trades, signings, and now a new coach in Quinn Snyder, someone with an actual reputation in the NBA. But in my eyes, if they made a move big enough to get DeJounte Murray, and they lost 2 more games than they did the year before, and then Trae Young played worse, I'm officially on the train of thought that Trae Young makes the Hawks the most mid team in the NBA like they were last year. So with that being said, I don't see the Hawks improving or regressing. The Hawks will stay in the exact same lane they have been in the last 3 seasons. 40-year team, bottom half of the Eastern Conference playoff standings, out in the first round, 2nd round at best. But again, you know, in that one run, they were pretty lucky with their standing, and then they were pretty lucky that the fact that the 76ers just suck. I never thought I'd see a team that is so consistent as the Hawks, but in the worst ways possible. And this is only possible because Trae Young probably peaking as a player already. This year is probably the best opportunity he will have as an NBA player to win anything. Getting a year to mess with DeJounte Murray, Sadiq Bey will be a knockdown shooter, Bogdan off the bench to score, and we are all waiting to see if the Hawks will dump Clint Capella and make Onyeka Okongwu the full-time starter. A lot is going on in the ATL, but if this team is going to go anywhere, Trae Young's got to play a bit more to his comparison to Steve Nash and chill with the bad shots, something that everyone has been saying for the longest. But until then, they will stay in the same realm they have been in with Trae Young as the leader. The Utah Jazz have done a lot to really make a nice restart ever since the Gobert and D. Mitch trades, turning Lauri Markkanen into an all-star, making Walker Kessler into the next Gobert, if not even better, and creating a foundation for other young guys. But one person who I see having a nice redemption season this next season is Collin Sexton. I believe Collin Sexton will have a career year and become a nice scoring duo at Lauri Markkanen and getting back into his 3rd season form. Ever since he suffered a terrible torn meniscus injury, he has had real trouble getting back into NBA shape, and even last year he barely played half the season. But now I think he'll come back and torch the NBA like he used to. I am really adamant about my dislike for smaller guards who can only score, but Collin is in that 1% of that crowd, and he proved that he can be a real bucket getter in the NBA. He just needs to still work on the same issues that plagued him in his pre-draft notes, like his defense and of course his lack of playmaking. But this new start in Utah, he can really reinvent himself into a totally new player and become a new beneficiary of the trades the Cleveland Cavaliers made to get Donovan Mitchell. I doubt that he touches getting an all-star bout from it, considering the Jazz might be in the worse place than they were last year record-wise. But if there's one thing Danny Ainge loves, is getting draft capital. So I'm sure he can use this as a way to get traded to a more favorable situation, or again, just be a new building block for the Utah Jazz's future. I hope y'all know that I have been dying to talk about the 76ers on this video, but due to this wheel, I guess I have to save the best for last. The 76ers have been a part of an offseason from hell, dealing with the James Harden situation and dealing with major uncertainty all over the franchise. But after seeing how their team is slowly deteriorating, signing Mo Bamba, old Danny Green, and Patrick Beverley added on to that average age factor, I think we are coming on to the dark ages of the process era that have been going on for at least a decade. Even with their new hiring of Nick Nurse, I don't believe it'll get any better. So with that being said, my final hot take for this video is that the 76ers won't even make it past the first round this playoffs. I don't know what type of trade they have in mind for James Harden, if any at all, as long as he wasn't touched by Clippers, but the trajectory of the 76ers has been down ever since the blunder against the Hawks a few years ago. It doesn't matter how good Embiid does in the regular season or how good the team is during the regular season wins rise. He or the team themselves always find a way to shrink come playoff time. And I believe this trend will continue to an even worse degree this year due to all the uncertainty everywhere. But it mainly comes down to how much this team relies on Embiid and Harden for any type of success. Giving up a 3-2 lead against the Celtics and then getting embarrassed by them in Game 7 is not a good look, and there isn't much more they can do at this point to improve. So unless Nick Nurse comes up with a genius idea, a genius strategy, or just finds Michael Jordan's secret stuff from Space Jam, I don't see a reason for anyone to believe that they can go past what they were a year ago. I got them jotted down as an early playoff exit and an Embiid trade incoming probably next offseason. Thank you for watching, and tell me if you agree or disagree with the takes I made today, and what are yours for this upcoming season, and see you next video.